So I started a fight on TikTok. I know this shocks everyone because I would never ever possibly say something that was controversial or something that would upset anyone. I would never do that, right? And sane, right? So no, of course I did. Well, so this is what happened. Started off with a person who is an atheist that I follow on TikTok posted things saying that he believes that religions as a whole tend to sideline women. They tend to treat women as second class citizens, and I disagreed with that point, saying that no, the Bible doesn't say that. But I also, the premise of what he was saying is that in response to his belief about religion and its posture towards women, that he was going to try and bump women creators who are atheists. And all right, fine, but I replied back with the statement of that genitalia doesn't make someone's voice more or less valuable. The content of speech is what makes someone's voice more or less valuable. There's nothing inherently valuable about someone's voice. And it happened to be on Monday when all of this occurred. And there's been a lot of changes that have been occurring. You might notice that I have a different backdrop behind me. The reason for that is, as a quick tour, I used to be sitting over there, and so I was over there, and I would talk with the bookcase still behind me. But we've rearranged things around here, made some more space, more openness. We've been working on the nursery the most throughout the week, and so I'll do all of that later for you. But anyways, during all of that work, obviously I can't keep up with notifications. I can't post and stuff because I got work to do. We had people over that were helping. I'm busy. So that's Monday, and so they go home in the evening and now get back. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and so now I'm dressed for war. Because you need to know, I don't have notifications on anything, Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok. So I have to actually open the app to see what's been happening, and if I don't do that, then I don't see them. And I would encourage, if you can, it's very liberating to do so. I'm not like, bidding, 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 I'm not doing that. So I would encourage, I think for your mental health, some of you may want to do the same thing. So at the end, literally I open up TikTok, and I have a small channel. Keep in mind, people measure success on TikTok in millions. I'm in the hundreds. So I don't have a very big channel. But I can typically count on, let's say, about 100 views on a video. That's usually what I get. Well, on that in particular one, and I don't get a lot of interactivity. I don't get a lot of comments. I don't get a lot of duets. I don't get a lot of stitches. I don't get that kind of contact with people because, like I said, small channel, small influence. I don't get a lot of eyes. So when I open it up, I think I had 50 notifications of all the different kinds. I had people mentioning me, trying to get my attention. I had comments. I had stitches. I had duets. I had the whole thing. And so now, because I'm a night owl anyways, I work at night. I'm just like I said, dressed for combat, more or less. Metaphorically, not literally. Calm down. And so I'm like, let's wade into this. And so I got some good dialogues going back and forth with some different people on this issue. People calling me a misogynist at least a dozen times a day for about the next 3 days. Saying that I hate women because I'm religious. I hate women because I think that women need to be shushed or silenced. Or people just proof texting verses out of context. That was Monday. Well, what's interesting is that in the same breath as people are disagreeing with me about the statement that not all voices are equally valid, not all voices are equally worth hearing, they don't deserve the same weight on different subjects. That was my claim. People are saying that I'm an idiot, I'm a misogynist, I'm archaic for thinking that. In that same breath, or that same comment, or that same video response, they are saying that I'm a slime ball, that I'm a euphemism of various kinds. I don't deserve to be heard. People leaving comments of like, I didn't even watch this video, just keep moving, everyone. They're literally invalidating my voice while in the same breath that they're doing so trying to say that all voices are valid. They're diminishing me as an individual, attacking my individual value. So their actions are giving themselves away, that they clearly do believe what I'm saying, they just don't want to admit it. So that's Monday. Tuesday happens, and so like I'm still working on stuff, so I got a few videos ready, and so I was posting those later. And then so I posted a bunch of them in the morning. There was like 8 or 9 of them, and then we got people coming over. We've had stuff to do, cleaning out the garage, cleaning out the basement. Like, we had stuff to do. And so the same thing happens. Basically, I finish uploading, and then close everything out, phone's on my desk, and I walk away, getting things done. And then that night, same thing, like everyone goes home that night, coming and opening it up, and I've got another abnormally large number of responses. Some in regards to this, like yesterday, some of them are just like kind of tweet backs, essentially, I guess you could say, or responses from my interaction back the previous day. And people saying, again, I'm a misogynist, that I hate women, that I'm a bigot. They're saying these things. They're saying that it's because I'm too young, I don't deserve to have a voice, that maybe when I grow up someday. They're creating these barriers of entry in their mind and communicating them for reasons why my voice is less valuable than theirs on the subjects of which we were discussing. So, is it true that are all voices equally deserving of weight and value? On Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, and Amazon all just very clearly decided that not all voices are worth the same weight and value and presence in an environment. Did they not? Am I wrong about that? No, I am clearly not. This is true. We see this, we observe it everywhere. And honestly, if you say, I'm not trying to make a authority fallacy, an appeal to authority, but when someone has experience, that person has an education in a specific, or let's say you're 30 years as a teacher, and I'm talking about what the education system is about. 30-year teacher probably carries a little more weight than just a student. However, the student also has a perspective. It just may not be the same weight of perspective, right? So, here we are. Wednesday comes, and now we're still doing back and forth stuff, and the subject that we're talking about is, what does the Bible really say about women? What does it really say? And of course, if you're an atheist, or atheists out there are a dime a dozen, and they will proof text stuff from, let's say, the Levitical law and things that they don't like, but they never tell the whole story. So there is more to it. There is women being assigned the role of prophetesses in the Old Testament, like Huldah. There's a judge over the nation of Israel named Deborah, woman, in case you couldn't figure that out from her name. And they are the little matriarchs of the nation of Israel: Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, right? Now, not all of the stories are squeaky clean, but that actually helps us in finding out that when you see a story involving a woman like Dinah or Tamar, that what shows us is that these stories are true. Because if we were trying to curate this information, if the ancient peoples, they were trying to curate this information to put the most positive light on these stories, they would have edited this stuff out. And we know that they would have because every single time a new ruler comes up in the ancient world, in these kingdoms like Babylon, Persia, Medes, like places, is that they would destroy the records from the previous, and they would start the dating system over at year one of their reign. If they need, like, if they were like replacing or conquesting or something like that, they were usurping. They would do this because they want to put themselves in the best positive, most positive light that they can, so that people will respect them. So if we see stories like this, it's called the embarrassment factor in ancient literature. When you see embarrassing stories like this, or at least non-encouraging, inadmirable stories like this in the narrative of the Bible, it shows us that, yeah, this is probably true. This is probably accurate to the way things actually were and how they happened. So moving on, though, you get to the New Testament, you have a woman being entrusted to carry the infant Savior, God in the flesh. You have a group of women being entrusted with the message of the risen Savior after his resurrection. Women are multiply regarded as being caregivers and faithful stewards of Jesus Christ and his disciples while during his ministry. You have women being regarded as elders, or let's say just leaders in the church, like Lydia and Prisca and Aquila. You have women being regarded and respected for their enormous amounts of faith in the New and Old Testament, their faithfulness to the prophets and speakers on behalf of God, like the Shunammite woman in Old Testament, as well as the woman, the Gentile woman who goes to Jesus, or the woman who anoints Jesus' feet. Like, there's numerous examples of this where women are respected, honored, and shown great affection by both the New and Old Testaments. They're even shown to be prophetesses. Philip had 4 daughters who were referred to as prophetesses. So clearly they are allowed to perform speaking roles in the church gathering. They're even commanded directly in Titus chapter 2 to teach and disciple and train younger women how they are to live as Christian women. So yes, they are allowed a speaking role. Yes, they are allowed to engage in leadership in the church body. There's just one thing they are not allowed to do, and that's be pastors. And how do we know this? So in numerous places, Christian people are admonished, or at least the followers of Christian people are admonished to be gentle and meek. It's in the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the meek, right? It is in the fruit of the Spirit, in which gentleness, the same word, is one of those fruits of the Spirit. However, those who are pastors are admonished in another way as well. Yes, they are told to be tender towards those who are weak, right? That are tender, to mourn with those who mourn, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. They are instructed that, but they're also given instructions alongside that they are to be strong, and they are to be strict with the way that they guide their churches. This is 1st, 2nd Timothy, and in Titus, that they are to be good soldiers for Christ Jesus, that they are to admonish forcefully those who break God's commands in 1 John. That they're like things like this, that they are not to be lenient against behaviors of sin, and that requires something special that women are not encouraged to do. See, women are also encouraged to have a meek and gentle spirit in the New Testament. Whereas men are throughout in 1 Corinthians, it says, act like men, be strong and courageous. There's a little bit of a fork in the road in the way that they are instructed there. That yes, women can speak, and they are allowed to preach on the street corners, let's say, or they are allowed to do like they're allowed to nurture. They are allowed to do things, but there's a specific role, mantle, authority in the pastoral role or office in the church that men are specifically given, that is special for them because of the way that God has wired men to be naturally. I mean, and you can see the way they are, that many of the most aggressive athletic competitions are predominantly male. Football, and yes, there's women's rugby, I know, but football is tougher, and I know that because I've done both. Football is a much more violent sport. It just is. CTE and Achilles tendons and things like, it's a much more violent sport than others. So here's the thing, there's a special thing wired into the male nature that makes them perfectly suited to fill that pastoral calling in a unique way that God has designed. And that's not a bad thing. That is what God designed them to do. But that's not the end of the story either. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, right on the tail end of that legendary passage that people love to call out, saying that women are not allowed to speak in church, which is verse 34 and 35, 36 says, "Or do you think you are the only ones to receive the gospel? Or do you think you're the only ones to hear this message?" That's important, because it sounds like that there may be a concession in there of that if you're in a town, you're in a village, you're in a context where the majority of individuals that are confessing Christ are women, can they have a women leader? Can they have a woman who leads them? First, they're commanded to have a woman who's leading them already. Titus chapter 2, I went over that. But are they, if, let's say it's mostly women and there's a minority of men present, can a woman pastor or lead that small group? It seems to me in this passage, which I'm not trying to lead a new cultural revolution, I'm just telling you what it appears to mean to me. It appears to mean to me that there's a concession present there to say that a woman is allowed to step forward when no other man is available, because the grace of God abounds where the general rule, the principle, isn't sufficient to address the circumstance. And so here we have, like, if you look at data from like the International Missions Board of the Southern Baptist Convention, it'll tell you that overwhelmingly the people going to unreached people groups throughout the world, people that have never heard the name of Christ, places that are dangerous for you to say or confess the name of Christ, dangerous to your life, danger to your physical goods and property, those places, overwhelmingly, the majority of people going to them are women, not men. And part of the reason for that, if you look at Barna and Pew Research, that in the Western world, church attendance is 51% or more female. See, the simple fact is that Christianity as a global entity is not nearly as white and male as you have been led to believe. It just is not. In fact, if you get outside of the United States of America, especially outside the Bible Belt of the United States of America, it is far more predominantly black and female. There's a lot more people with feminine genitalia and dark tones of skin going to church every Sunday, often under threat of life and limb, than there is men going to church. Just globally, but especially in the West, you can see this. Depending on the precise demographic you want to examine, especially among African American or Hispanic communities, the disparity is much wider. With like 60, 70% female congregations. And so, is it acceptable for a woman to get up on that platform and to preach the gospel in that context? I say yes. Because simply, if we're sending them to the worst possible places, the most dangerous places, then how dare we not give them a safe place to preach as well? How hypocritical is that? But does that mean that if a man comes into that environment who is qualified, who is credentialed, and is capable of taking that role, should she step aside? Maybe. I would say that that's for that congregation, for that man, that woman, to wrestle out on their own. Because quite frankly, in my mind and in my heart, every time I hear about a woman pastoring a large mixed congregation, my first thought is, where is the man? Because especially in some of these mega churches that are being led by these individuals, that's not that there aren't seminary graduates present. And it's not that people aren't called, that are men to fill that role present.